Welcome to another edition of Fourth Quarter Clutch. Today we'll be talking about the NFL Week 9 preview, and the matchups aren't really that appetizing this week because a lot of good teams are on bye. The 49ers are on bye, the San Francisco 49ers are on bye, the Detroit Lions are on bye, the Denver Broncos are on bye, the Arizona Cardinals are on bye, and then there are two garbage teams on bye, which is the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New York Giants. And yes,
That basically means that Jacksonville will actually not lose this week for the only week this entire season.
They could be tied with Tampa for the worst record in the league after this week.
That is shocking.
I know it's been a really bad year for Jacksonville. But let's not talk about them because we can talk about them next week when they play whoever they're going to lose to next week.
Coin flip for first draft pick overall.
As long as you don't have Shiano tossing it, you're good. So, last night, Thursday night, there was a football game. It was actually a really good game, which was really surprising because it was the Cincinnati Bengals and the Miami Dolphins, and the Dolphins pulled off the upset win over the Bengals thanks to Cameron Wink and his safety. And there are some injury concerns for the Cincinnati Bengals. They lost defensive tackle Geno Atkins to a torn ACL, which means he's going to be done for the year. And Gio Bernard had a rib injury where he left the game, and they're saying that he will be fine and he shouldn't miss any time. He's listed as questionable on RotoWorld, according to they used Mike Silver on Twitter as their source. And it was an interesting game. Giovanni Bernard had one play where he looked like Barry Sanders in an amazing running play. No, I am not saying Giovanni Bernard is as good as Barry Sanders, but he looked really good, and he looked Barry Sanders-like on that play. Did you see the play, Brian, by chance?
I didn't see that play, but I saw his stat line, and to me, that just says it all right there. And, I mean, if Cincy wasn't sure which of their running back between him and Benjarvis Green-Ellis for their starter from here on out, it's pretty obvious now.
Oh, I absolutely agree. There's some. As I said before, most of the matchups are going to be potential blowouts this week. The Kansas City Chiefs try to improve on their amazing comeback season from last year's disaster, and they play the Buffalo Bills. And if things couldn't get much worse for the Buffalo Bills, their quarterback right now, Thad Lewis, is listed as doubtful, and that means that Jeff Toole, who's an undrafted rookie, or Matt Flynn, who's bounced around from Green Bay, Seattle, Oakland, and now Buffalo, could start this week. They're saying that Jeff Toole is most likely to make the start. He got most of the snaps earlier today. Brian, do you think Thad Lewis should start over Matt Flynn?
Thad Lewis over Matt Flynn? Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Matt Flynn hasn't been there long enough to get really a feel for their system or to create any chemistry with any of their wide receivers. Definitely looking like Thad Lewis would be the play over Matt Flynn. But there is good news for Buffalo Bills fans. Now that Matt Flynn is there, now they're going to finally find a quarterback. It's basically what's going to happen. I mean, it's sure to be to happen because Matt Flynn is there to help somebody step up.
Oh, I totally agree. And also, the Buffalo Bills will have both their running backs playing. C.J. Spiller and Fred Jackson are both expected to play. And in case you haven't seen C.J. Spiller perform well this year, he has been battling injuries. So if he's healthy and he's 100%, he is one scary guy to try to tackle with that speed and that acceleration when he's in open space is just unbelievable.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a big-time shared role between C.J. Spiller and Fred Jackson this week. I don't think C.J. is quite up to 100% at this point. And I think you're going to see a good chunk of Fred Jackson with Thad Lewis out, and with them probably going with Jeff Toole this week. So it looks like Fred Jackson. And I would go, I'd go, especially in fantasy, I'd say go with Fred Jackson for sure this week.
Oh, I totally agree. And also, speaking of another team that's pretty bad, like the Buffalo Bills, except this team is worse. They're 0-7. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers without their running back Doug Martin for the second consecutive week, and with the rookie quarterback and Mike James at running back, and just a lot of issues on that team. They happen to have one of the worst possible matchups. They are going to travel to Seattle and play a 4 o'clock game against Seattle. The Vegas betting odds has them as a 16-point underdog to the Seattle Seahawks. Brian, quick question. Over under Seattle winning the game by 16?
Over. Absolutely. I mean, I'd be surprised if Tampa Bay gets in the end zone with this game. I could see a couple of field goals, probably 6 points maybe. And then for Seattle, 28-31. Not saying they're going to win by that much, but I'm saying probably about 21 points they're going to win by, maybe 22, something like that. That's what I would say, especially at home.
I'm saying easily over. I say that Seattle will nearly double that odd and win by 30. And I would not be surprised if Richard Sherman outscored the Tampa Bay offense. They are so bad, so unbelievably bad, that they have no chance against Seattle. Because, I mean, look what Seattle has done to nearly every team they have played. Especially at home. They made San Francisco look like garbage when they played a Sunday night game earlier this year.
Yep. It's that defense. That defense is just completely it stamps them out, and it doesn't give them anything. This is a passing league, and they built their defense to be a strong secondary defense, and it's incredibly smart. It's perfect because if you can stop the pass, the run it's not as big a deal in the NFL right now. So it's obvious for that.
Oh, I totally agree. And quick question for you, Brian.
Yeah.
With Doug Martin, his timetable from October 25th as listed was 2 to 8 weeks that he would be out. Over under Doug Martin returns by week 13. Right now is week 9.
Yeah, I was thinking I was going to say under, but with the way that they're going so far, they're not going to really win a game like solidly. They're not going to do much this season. I think they rest him to 100%. I don't think they'll go. I don't think they'll take a risk on him for that. So I'm saying probably he comes back around week. I don't know. They'll probably try to get a little bit of work with him, but if he suffers a setback, he could be done for the year. But I don't see him coming back before week 13. No way.
Oh, I totally agree. And also, I think the big thing is they had on PAMF.org, they asked a Dr. Colin Eakin, who is a PMF who works in the PMF sports medicine department, and someone asked him, what's the recovery like coming from a kind of labral tear injury? And he said that after they have one of the procedures, whether they have surgery or they go through rehabilitation, which will probably happen for Doug Martin, the patient is in the sling for about 4 weeks, then needs physical therapy. For the more minor procedure, which Doug Martin probably has, you'll need roughly 2 months of therapy, but for the full repair therapy, takes about 4 months. If you do the math, 2 months from October 25th is December 25th. The last game of the season for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is December 29th against the New Orleans Saints. They'll probably be 0-15 by then. I don't see them bringing Doug Martin back this year. I think they'll just try and get him healthy for next year and hope that he has an amazing season.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. If he doesn't come back in the next couple weeks, he's not coming back at all.
But now on to the actual games that will be sort of competitive to really competitive. The first game is the New Orleans Saints against the New York Jets. The Saints have been playing unbelievable, obviously on offense as they're expected to, but also on defense. They've been having a really, really good year. Could be because of Rob Ryan. It could be because the players are buying into a defensive system for the first time. Who knows what it is, but they look really good defensively. And the New York Jets are coming off a game where they lost 44-9 to the Cincinnati Bengals as they continue their tradition of winning a game and losing a game nearly every other week. And it should be close in terms of the games this week, but I expect the Saints to win by a good amount. I expect them to win by at least 7. And I think the key factor in this game, besides Drew Brees, is that New Orleans Saints pass defense. They've given up only 222.1 passing yards a game, which ranks 11th in the NFL. Jets passing wise, they average 210 passing yards a game, which ranks as the 22nd worst among offenses. I think that stat line alone will determine the Saints winning the game. The next game we're going to discuss is an interesting game. Surprisingly, the Chargers have looked San Diego Chargers have looked really good this year, and the Washington Redskins. It's a 1:00 game on CBS. The Saints Jets will be on Fox. Brian, what are your thoughts on the San Diego Chargers Redskins game?
I'm liking San Diego in this game, actually. Washington, their defense is really what I'm looking at this point. Their defense is it just hasn't been doing well. It hasn't been up to snuff. They've got great talent on the defensive side, but it seems like their scheming is just not working. Especially with going against an offense with so many weapons as San Diego at this point. They've just got too many weapons for the Redskins to really take care of. They got Danny Woodhead, we got Keenan Allen, who's been a great wide receiver. Phil Rivers has been doing great, and they've actually been protecting him this year. Last year, Phil Rivers, he was on the ground half the game, just about every single game. So they've actually been able to protect him. They've actually been, and the Redskins actually don't have much of a pass rush at this point. So I don't see them doing really well against San Diego. I think it's going to be a bit of a scoring contest to see who can outscore the other team, and I see San Diego being able to stop the Redskins just a little bit more. So I'm going to say probably San Diego by 6. Yeah, I'd say San Diego by 6.
I totally agree.
So Noah, what do you think about the Steelers and the Patriots this week?
That should be an interesting game. That's probably going to be the best game of the 4:00 games because the other games aren't really that good. I mean, one of them's Tampa versus Seattle. That really says it all. New England has surprisingly done well this year considering all the injuries they've had to deal with. And you could argue that it makes Tom Brady's MVP profile look really good in a typical year. But then there's also Peyton Manning, so I mean, Peyton Manning's gonna win it unless something terrible happens in like the next 7 weeks. But it should be interesting. Surprisingly, the Patriots have looked better for the league average for running the ball per game than passing the ball per game. They could have to deal with Aaron Dobson, Kemba Tompkins, Julian Edelman being the primary receivers this year. Danny Amendola has been 50-50 this year. Rob Gronkowski has only been back for 2 weeks. But the key factor in this game is the Steelers' defense hasn't been as bad as people have probably expected. Mm-hmm. They looked really bad against the run, so the New England Patriots will probably do ground and pound a lot. But Tom Brady might have some trouble passing on this team. The Steelers have the second best pass defense in the NFL. They have only given up 181 yards per game through the air, and that is unbelievable. Total yards, they've only given up 302.9, which ranks 4th in the NFL. And the Patriots run defense is really bad. They rank 31st, 130.8 per game. The Steelers ranked 27. Actually, no. The Steelers ranked 30th in the NFL in run running yards per game, 68.7. But that's also a little skewed because Le'Veon Bell missed a good amount of time. And when he missed time, the Steelers running backs looked really
Yeah.
bad. I mean, they had Felix Jones as one of their best running backs, and he was a cast-off from Dallas. I see New England winning this game by around 3. And the only reason I see it being that close is because you never know with Amendola and how he'll play, but they will pass the ball a lot to Gronkowski, and Gronkowski should be the difference in this game.
I also see Troy.
Brian,
I see turnovers being a big key factor in that game. Whoever makes the fewest mistakes, I see being the winner of that one actually.
Oh, I totally agree. And for the record, Steelers versus Patriots will be at 4:25 on CBS. And the other 4:25 game on CBS is the Baltimore Ravens and the Cleveland Browns. Brian, what are your thoughts on this game?
My main concern with the Ravens this year is their lack of points, of scoring. Their lack of scoring. They have really struggled to score some actual points. And the Browns have been really, really good. The problem is Jason Campbell is actually going to be starting for the Browns this week. So I don't see the Browns really being as competitive offensively this week as they have been in past weeks with like Brian Hoyer or even Brandon Weeden. Brandon Weeden actually has had some good games this year. He not as many as Brian Hoyer because they actually started to win with Brian Hoyer. But the problem is Jason Campbell's starting this week, and people have been talking all year about Baltimore's defense being like really bad and them losing so many players. Well, they actually added some pretty good players to their roster, and I see the Ravens having a pretty solid game, but that's just because in the end, it comes down to scoring, and I think they're going to be able to score more points than the Browns, and also they're playing much better in division play than in outside of their division games. So I see Baltimore taking this game. I'm going to say by 7, just because of their ability to score hasn't been as solid this year. So I think the Browns will give them a little bit of a run, but eventually I think they'll come out on top about 7 points.
I agree with that. The Sunday night game is the Indianapolis Colts against the Houston Texans. Chase Keenum is expected to start at quarterback for the Houston Texans, so that should be an easy victory for the Indianapolis Colts. But the Monday night game we should discuss because even though it doesn't, Jay Cutler is going to not play for the Bears, the starting quarterback. It is the Chicago Bears against the Green Bay Packers, and that is one of the greatest rivalries in the NFL.
Yeah, I have to say the Bears defense is going to step this one up. They are, in the last several years, they have the highest turnover margin of any team in the NFL. They're insane when it comes to takeaways. And I think if their defense can score for them this week, I think that'll make a really close game. If not, if the Packers don't make any of those big time mistakes against the Bears defense, the Bears don't really have much of a chance with McCown at the helm for me. But I think the Bears are going to make this a close game, and I think their defense is really going to step it up.
I totally disagree. I think the Green Bay Packers are just going to run them out of Lambeau Field. Aaron Rodgers is just Aaron Rodgers. James Jones might play for the Packers, and that would be huge. Having James Jones, Jordy Nelson, and Terrell Boykin on the same offense is pretty good. It's not as good as their team in the beginning of the year when they had Jermichael Finley, Randall Cobb, Jordy Nelson, and who was it? 1, 2, yeah, and those guys. But they still have a really nice team, and they also have Eddie Lacy, the running back from Alabama, who's been really good this year. And honestly, I see Josh McCown having a lot of trouble handling the pass rush from guys like A.J. Hawk, Clay Matthews, B.J. Raji. The list goes on and on of really good Green Bay players. And yes, they have Matt Forte that'll kind of keep them in the game, but the Green Bay Packers should just run them out of the building. I wouldn't be surprised if the game's over by halftime.
See, I wasn't saying that it was going to be a big close game. I was saying if the Bears defense really steps it up, they can make it a close game. But I don't see them actually doing that. But I think they have the best chance of any team to do that. Like, you know what I mean?
Asking for a lot from the Bears.
That's what I'm saying, though. With the Packers at home, they're a huge home team, and I don't see the Bears' defense stepping up. But I think their only chance is for their defense to actually step it up and score. Like their defense score. I mean, that's how sad it is. Is that if you have to rely on your defense to score, that means you're gonna have a rough game. That's what I'm saying. So I'm still going Packers probably by 10. Totally but if the Bears step it up, they could make it a close game.
Also, just so you know, this is the Chicago Bears defensive rankings compared to the rest of the NFL. Points allowed per game, 29.4. Ranks 29th in the NFL.
That's ridiculous.
Total yards, 391. Ranks 27th in the NFL.
Yep.
Passing yards, 273.7. Also ranks 27th.
But this is the Bears and Packers, man. It's Bears and Packers.
And surprisingly, their best defensive stat, rushing yards allowed per game, 117.3, ranks 25th in the NFL.
Oh yeah. I think it's rough. I'm just saying, Bears and Packers, don't ever take either team for granted in that matchup, ever. Because last year, I think they were doing terrible. Both, I mean, the Bears were doing awful, and they beat the Packers. It's crazy.
And also, quick fantasy football injury update for Sunday's games. Ben Tate is expected to play. Arian Foster will be a game-time decision. The Minnesota Vikings are expected to start Christian Ponder this week against the Dallas Cowboys.
AP.
And Josh Freeman is expected to start the following week. So that should be interesting. The Carolina Panthers are expecting to activate Jonathan Stewart, the running back who's missed all the games this season, on tomorrow on Saturday. So that should be interesting. Roddy White will be a game-time decision, the wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons. Matt Ryan could really use him after Julio Jones went down a few weeks ago. As listed earlier, C.J. Spiller is probable for Sunday's game against the Kansas City Chiefs. As we said earlier, with Thad Lewis possibly not playing. And the other one, actually there's two other ones that could be big news. Zach Stacy practiced fully for yesterday's practice, and he is expected to be the starting running back for the St. Louis Rams against the Tennessee Titans. And then the other one, Aldon Smith, the outside linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers, has been activated from the reserve NFL list, and he will be back in Week 10. And he gives the 49ers just another level on their
huge boost.
Defense. Before he became inactive, he had 4.5 sacks in 3 games.
He's a beast. He's a game changer. He is. But we're gonna have to see how he responds mentally after all of those, after the situation that he had and the just all the craziness that he went through.
And one quick question for you before we end this: who wins the game first this season, Jacksonville Jaguars or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Tampa Bay. If any team if they win any games between the two of them, it's gonna be Tampa Bay. Jacksonville just. They don't have it. They don't have anything, really.
The thing that concerns me with Tampa Bay is their schedule is really rough. Outside of playing the Atlanta Falcons and the who's the other one? The Arizona Cardinals. That is a really, really rough schedule that they have against really good teams, especially the Saints.
Yeah, but the Saints, they're playing Week 17, so... if the Saints are resting their players, they got a chance there, and I believe they play Buffalo as well. And just about any team has a chance against Buffalo, especially if their quarterbacks are still hurt.
I wouldn't be surprised if Jacksonville and Tampa both won the last week. The last week of the season, typically the really, really good teams rest their starters because they have nothing to play for and just want to have their
Yeah.
players healthy for the playoff run. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers play the New Orleans Saints, who should easily clinch the
Yep.
AFC South. I mean the NFC
Yeah.
South by then, unless Carolina has an unbelievable run down the stretch. And the Jacksonville Jaguars that week will play the Indianapolis Colts, who should clinch the AFC South easily by then. So I wouldn't be surprised if both teams finish 1-15 just because of that last week with the other teams not trying.
Yeah. It'll be a race to the top draft pick for both teams. What?
Terry Bridgewater possibly going to one of those teams. Whichever team's worse might get Terry Bridgewater.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Fourth Quarter Clutch. We will have our NFL Fantasy Football Injury Report posted on Sunday before the games. And tune in for Hot Topics on Monday. As always, with me is Brian Zeigler. I'm Noah Weintraub. Thank you for tuning in.